Dubai vibe.
It's like
Dubai vibe.
Dubai vibe. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Could be. Bless you.
It's a god.
Bless you. Blessed. That's the chair. Hashtag so science. Let's go into it. Cheers.
Cheers.
The liquid culture.
Hello everybody, thank you for being here with me again on another episode of The Liquid Culture. Well, actually, thank you for being with us. I have my beautiful wife, Catherine, here with me today. Say hello.
Hello.
All right, that's that. The reason that Catherine's here with me today, guys, is we are doing an episode on Napa Valley wines. Catherine and I have taken a couple of trips to Napa. The set of wines that we are tasting today are all from a trip that we took in the spring of 2017. We visited a few other wineries than these, but I didn't want to include too many bottles. So we're going to do 4 bottles today, all of which we've tasted before, and I wanted to do on film and share with you guys. So
yeah, we did like, I feel like 55 wineries.
Too many?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was just a drunken state of palate fatigue.
It was for sure before we kind of knew how many we could do.
Yes.
In a day, in a week.
Yes.
Overdid it a little bit, but I think we've honed it in now. We're actually going back in June, and we've kind of tapered it down a little bit. So I think
2, maybe 3 a day.
Probably just going to be 2 a day,
Okay.
honestly.
Nice.
But
Nice.
that's kind of the sweet spot. You don't want to overdo it, right? So guys, today these are all from our trip that we took in the spring of 2017, which I don't know if some of you remember or know, but 2017 actually in the fall is when the big wildfire hit Napa. So we were there kind of right before that happened. A lot of the wines that we're tasting today are from a 2014 vintage. We do have one little kind of special 2011 bottle in here as well, but everything else is from 2014, so we're just going to jump right in. So we're starting out with a Mayacamas Merlot from 2014. This is one of my favorite wineries, not just in Napa Valley, but really favorite wineries, period. They primarily focus on Chardonnay and Cabernet, but they do a very kind of limited, they only produce about a couple hundred cases of Merlot every year, and it was one of my favorite wines from the tasting. I mean, there were only, we did Chardonnay, Cabernet, and the Merlot, but for me, this was kind of the surprise from that tasting.
It felt like Jurassic Park. It was almost, we got like a private tour
Jurassic Park
on a golf cart. Well, it wasn't a golf cart.
No,
it was
like a ATV.
Yeah, like an ATV. Yeah. I went all through the old vines and the new vines, and it was pretty spectacular. Yeah,
they have an incredible kind of like almost fairy tale location up in Mount Veeder. So in Napa, you have a lot of different places where the fruit comes from. Catherine's more of a valley floor girl, generally, like
I'm
Rutherford.
Just basic. I like a typical Napa cab.
Stag's Leap.
Yes, I would love to like, something amazing like, like a Bordeaux or something cool, but I don't. I like oaky and typical, probably over oaked.
Yeah, stuff that usually comes from lower elevation, whereas I would say the majority of the wines that we're tasting today are from higher elevation. So these, the fruit at Mayacamas is usually somewhere around like 2,000 feet of elevation, whereas the stuff that you usually go for is somewhere around 300 to 400 feet of elevation. So with Mayacamas, what you have are wines that are a lot more kind of old world style because they are cooler kind of climate, so to speak. They're more high acid, and then at Mayacamas they really take some pretty minimal restrained efforts to make their wines. It's more kind of like neutral oak and letting the fruit kind of express itself best as possible. So what are you smelling here, Kath?
When I smell this, I smell the cave.
Oh yeah. Yeah, their aging cave at Mayacamas, it's very wet and drippy.
And that's what this smells like a wet, old rock.
Yeah, Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely get that. But I mean, there's some fruit there too. It's like a really nice combination of that kind of
like dark fruits.
wet. Yeah, dark fruits for sure. Dark fruits and I get a little bit of like strawberry. So like I would say ripe red fruits leading to the dark fruits.
Cherries. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells pretty good.
Let's go into it. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to drinking at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's all for research. Definitely not over oaked.
No. Well, there's really no oak characteristic to it. I mean, they age I know this wine in particular, they age in neutral oak. They want to keep it very light, fruity, fresh. It does have some of those old world qualities to it, but it is like, I mean, the way they described it, if you remember, Cassandra told us when she was doing the tasting, she said that this is like their lunch wine, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
I think it's
super easy to drink.
It's light. I mean, it's like 13.5% alcohol.
But
it's
not too light.
Yeah, not too light. I mean, it's still kind of, medium body, I would say, but the acid's really nice, probably about medium plus acid. And it's about a $60 bottle. So it's the cheapest bottle we have in the lineup today. And it's a wine that not only did we taste it at the, bless you.
That was a cough, but thank you.
Well, got your
I'm
back
blessed.
anyways. You've been blessed.
I'm blessed.
Not only is it a wine that we tasted at the winery, but I've seen this bottle in a couple of wine shops, and we've purchased it at dinners and stuff like that because it's just a really well-priced, easy drinking bottle of Merlot.
And I can see you being able to drink this with most cuisines.
For sure. I mean, it's one of those wines that I say it on the show sometimes with particular wines. This is one of those wines that you could drink it on your own, have it out on the patio because it's nice and light, chill it down a little bit, but also it's complex enough and has a big enough body and that good sharp acid that it could pair with a lot of food, like you said.
Super good.
Pizza wine easily, but also. Are you done?
Yes, I don't get.
You don't get crazy.
Yeah. I don't get judged for drinking.
No judgment. No judgment on the show.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like I said, I'm typically more of like a kind of oak in your face. You can't taste the oak on that, which is nice.
Yep. All right, moving on. So up next, we're doing a Dariouche. So Dariouche is another really fun spot in the Napa Valley. I would say, though, totally different vibe from Mayacamas, whereas the tasting room for Dariouche and the production facility is not really up in the mountains. It's really kind of right there in the valley floor, but it's like it's got to be the most unique.
Yes, you drive up to it and you were like, I'm not in a tasting room.
I'm like in Persia somewhere. There's like these beautiful like botanical gardens.
I'm in Dubai at a tasting room.
Yeah, for sure. It has a for sure a Dubai vibe.
It's like
Dubai vibe.
Dubai vibe.
A Dubai vibe.
It's very grand. There's fountains everywhere. It's a lot of, from what I remember, like dry landscaping and gold, lots of gold.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money was spent on.
For sure. Beautiful, beautiful facility.
Yes.
And kind of in contrast to Mayacamas, Dariouche makes a pretty wide portfolio of wines. They make Syrah, they make Pinot Noir, they do make their Cabernets and Merlots and things of that nature. Today, we are actually drinking what is generally found as a blending grape, but it is a single varietal Cabernet Franc, which is one of my favorite grape varietals. Reason being is that Cabernet Franc is used in Bordeaux or in Bordeaux blends to bring like a spicy, peppery, bell peppery,
which is like my end all be all,
and like a brambly thing.
Yes.
And
Cab Franc grows well here.
In certain places, it can, yeah. In certain places it can, but I would say Texas is certainly not a place where Cab Franc is really well known. But it can. We're seeing some Cab Franc in Texas.
In the high plains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was right. When I smell this, smell a little smoky, a little cinnamon,
Yeah, there's some spice, not just like a pepper spice, but there's like a baking spice, like that cinnamon, barky kind of, maybe even like some star anise kind of thing.
And you'll have to excuse me, my allergies are so bad, so I'm gonna randomly cough and.
What else is new?
Yeah, I took a Zyrtec, but.
So yeah, it's got a brambly thing happening, but a lot of that spice characteristic as well.
It's good. So, this is definitely more fruit forward, a little bit more in your face.
Well, I think what you mean by that is you just mean it's a bolder wine.
Yes.
It's for sure a bolder wine.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think that necessarily there's a lot more fruit because it does have so much of that spice and that bell pepper thing.
Yeah, but I still do.
Darker fruits.
The fruit comes out more in this one than it did the last one
Sure.
for me.
I think everything does with this
Yeah.
one. I mean, the tannin's really high. On this wine, which is nice, definitely in contrast to the Mayacamas Merlot, we've got more tannin with this one, so it's a more serious wine, I think. And even for a single varietal version of a wine that is generally used in blends, this is a really, really good effort, I think, as a single varietal.
Now, is this a single varietal from one vineyard, or?
So. It's not, they don't vineyard designate it. That's a really good question. The fruit does come from the same appellation as the Merlot did in Mayacamas. The Mount Veeder appellation. Fruit for this Dariouche Cab Franc is also Mount Veeder fruit.
Okay.
So you're still having that high elevation, which this is a really powerful wine.
Yeah.
I think.
I love it.
And it's still got that really good acid from the high elevation. Really still... It's masculine and feminine, wouldn't you agree? It's got like some subtleties to it, but it's also
like
very punchy.
Like a unisex perfume, if you will.
Oh, me likey.
Yeah, it's all up here.
Little Tom Ford?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
Could be. Who knows?
But yeah, that's kind of, it is, I do understand what you say by masculine and feminine.
Yeah. So, and for this, again, 2014, the alcohol is certain, it's definitely higher. We're at 14.8 here, whereas remember, the Mayacamas was 13.5. So we step it up here for sure, from that lunch brunch wine up to, like, this is a big, bold steakhouse wine, in my opinion. You don't think it's steakhouse
not
quality?
there yet.
You don't think we've made
I
it there
could drink
yet?
this with anything. I can drink this with anything. But no, I do not think this is big, bold steakhouse wine.
Oh, well, okay. Well,
I think
but your style is that more oaky thing.
Yes.
So you're looking for more
I am the
oak.
typical big, bad, bold steakhouse wine.
So this
would go delicious with a steak. But I also think it would go delicious with like a cup of minestrone soup.
Minestrone soup. Me likey. Again, Kathy, again. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. No, jaw fill the minestrone soup, for sure. So, but this actually a lot more oak. I mean, it doesn't take. I don't taste it other than there's a little bit of that toasty, spicy thing going on. But this is 70% new oak for 22 months.
Damn.
So crazy, a crazy higher amount of oak than the Mayacamas, but it's not. It doesn't take on that really oaky, like extracted kind of Napa Valley wine.
No, it's not.
thing.
Yeah, not, again, not in your face, but delicious flavor.
So, you done with that? So, just a bit on before we get to the last 2014, the last 2014 wine here. So, bless you.
It's a cough.
Bless you. Blessed. That's the chair. The 2014 vintage was one in a continual set of years after 2011, where you continue to have kind of drought conditions, which ultimately is what led to the wildfire in 2017. But also, what we had in that same year was that big earthquake that they had.
Right.
That really screwed a lot of things up there. So 2014, I mean, it's a pretty serious vintage. I think that a lot of the winemakers in Napa called 2013 the best that they've ever seen. I think that 2014 was kind of following in those footsteps a little bit. Kind of you had like 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, they were all kind of really good vintage years. So I'm kind of happy that we were able to get a bunch of their wines.
Are you gonna tell them what we're drinking?
I probably should do that, shouldn't I? Mm-hmm. This is why I have it here, guys. Nickel and Nickel. This is a Cabernet Sauvignon. Single varietal, single vineyard from BD Ranch. This is also mountain fruit. This is also high elevation. We're looking at not Mount Veeder, but Howell Mountain. Mm-hmm. So one of the other very big, well-known mountain appellations in Napa Valley. So again, Nickel and Nickel is known for, they specialize in single varietal, single vintage, single vineyard Cabernet Sauvignon.
Nice, yeah.
So, and I think that this was one of your favorite spots to visit.
Nickel and Nickel, but again, it was just like incredibly delicious high oaked cab. Mm-hmm. And that comes forward really, really beautifully on their wines. I also loved their grounds. I loved that they, I think this was the first place we went to.
This was the first place, because we hit it coming into town.
Yeah, this was the first place we went to, and I had never been to Napa before, and didn't really know what a tasting was like in Napa and mm-hmm. how like formal it is, because in Texas it's very, very different. You know, in Napa you tour their facilities and you go and you look at their barrels and their barrel room, and I remember they showed us, like, they had like over 30 different types of soil.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up.
Which I thought was fascinating, that all of these, you know, grapes and varietals and vines grow through such different conditions.
Yeah. And that was such, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was such a major focus of the tour at Nickel and Nickel, was they wanted to show you like kind of why it is that they do these single vineyard Cabernets, because mm-hmm. all these different vineyard sites are located at different elevations. They're in different, like, facing, they're facing, you know, the sun in different places, and all of them really have different soils. So this one from the BD Ranch is like a rocky red soil.
Right.
But they have others that come from, you know, marine soils. They have some that come from like volcanic soils. Mm-hmm. And this was that kind of rocky red soil thing. And yeah, that was a really interesting part of the experience there, is talking about the different soils.
And they had them, like, they had all the different soils laid out for you, so you could look at them, you could pick it up and kind of touch it and see all the different types of, I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah. So this has a, I mean, this smells like Cabernet to me, 100%. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have anything, you can tell that this is, like, if you stuck your nose in this blind, I think anybody who drinks Cabernet would say this is Cabernet.
Yes. But when I dig deep, I get like a really high class gusher. Yeah.
No, I didn't want to interrupt her, but I was not going to say gusher. I mean, I was going to say like a very juicy, like squishy candy of some kind, you know?
Gusher.
Yeah, gusher. Mm. But it has it smells a little hot though to me. I mean, you can kind of smell the alcohol with it. It's 14.5, so it's actually between the first two wines. But you can smell the alcohol a little bit.
This one falls flat a little bit to me.
That's surprising to me, because I'm not a huge fan of this style of wine, and I know that you are. It doesn't have that real viscous mouthfeel that you can get with some, because again, this is still high elevation.
I know, but I think that's what I'm missing.
That's probably what you're missing. Mm-hmm. So this is a high elevation Cabernet. Again, like the first two wines, this is a higher elevation wine. So for those of you out there who drink a lot of Napa Valley Cabernet, you may drink things from like Rutherford or Oakville or Stag's Leap District or something like that, and you're kind of used to something that's really thick and like mouth-filling. You have a ton of oak on it. This does have some oak. I would still say though, not overly oaked.
No, definitely not overly oaked.
I think it's really subtle. It's 17 months with 58% new oak, and I think that shows. I think that they did a really good job keeping the oak like in balance with the fruit.
But to me, so this Nickel and Nickel is a $120 bottle. The Dariouche is a $65 bottle. I would drink the Dariouche over the Nickel and Nickel. Mm-hmm. All day long.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I think in terms of like finding value, right? So far, I think the most like visceral the most enjoyment I've gotten from any of these wines has come from the Dariouche. It might not be necessarily a value play though, because at 65 bones, you're still looking at a relatively pricey bottle for a varietal that you can find a much cheaper versions of in different places that can give you this similar expression.
Yeah, and maybe we do a tasting on just Cab Franc.
I mean, I'm definitely planning on it because.
Will I be invited back?
I don't know. We'll see how the people kind of respond.
I think that the ratings are gonna spike when I'm on. That's what I think.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So yeah, I mean, I would say so far, you know, if we were to have to rank these so far, we still have one wine left to go. But if we were to have to rank them so far, I'd have to go Dariouche, Mayacamas, Nickel and Nickel.
Why do you get a bigger glass than I do? Because you're chubbier?
Because, I don't know, because I didn't have two of these or two of those. We just had to kind of...
You're a man, so you deserve bigger stuff.
No, of course not. Of course not. In fact, I gave you the glass that I prefer drinking out of more.
That's
so
sweet.
I was trying to be kind of
I
nice.
love these dainty things, but my fingernails aren't done and they're pretty, so I'm trying to hide them.
You disgust
me. Like I'm a
How dare you?
hand amputee.
All right, guys, Palmaz. This is the 2011 Cabernet Sauvignon. If you have watched my Tale of Two Cabs video, you have seen me talk about Palmaz before. I would say that I'm not gonna waste any time talking about the vineyard because I talked about it a lot in that video and you guys can check that one out, but I have a feeling that Catherine's gonna want to say something about it.
Yeah, Palmaz is amazing. Again, like a Jurassic Park. It's just so science.
So science.
Huge.
Hashtag so science.
huge screens all over the walls going through like thermal, you know, shit. I mean, like, it's amazing.
It's crazy.
Dr. Palmaz was a doctor in San Antonio and created
the heart stent.
The heart stent, and made his fortune off of that, and then moved out to Napa, and so he's a Texas guy. But very impressed with their production facility. If you're in Napa, you have to go to Palmaz because it's not going to be anything like you've seen before, and you have to do like a tour. And
for sure, I think that for me, their wines generally kind of have that ubiquitous kind of Napa Valley flavor to them. So in terms of they make really exceptional, powerful wines.
It smells. Hold on. It smells barnyard.
Right. I'm glad you picked that up because I too picked that up. It's very
a little bit of cow poop in it.
It's earthy. It's got some manure. It's got some barnyard funkiness to it. It's got some like wet mildewy kind of earthy wet forest floor vibes going on.
Yes.
So honestly, I have not tasted this wine. We didn't even taste this wine when we were there. I just saw that they had a 2011 vintage on the bottle list, and knowing what I know about 2011, I wanted to snatch a bottle of it because 2011 was actually the last cool wet vintage that Napa Valley had leading into that kind of those drought years that they had, that we've been talking about with 12, 13, 14, 15, ultimately leading up to those wildfires. 2011 was that last kind of wet, musty,
minerally,
sticky. Well, it was that was the weather that they had. It was cool. It was wet. You had a lot of fungal growth happen, and it was it
comes through in this wine.
It was a very hit or miss vintage for Napa Valley because a lot of the fruit was damaged by fungus and things of that nature. But I love that this wine, you can smell the vintage in this wine. I mean, you can smell this wet, musty, like decaying, like forest floor kind of thing happening with this, which is my absolute jam.
And the flavor is not that. The flavor does not taste.
Oh, it's not?
No, which I love.
Dang.
So it has your nose, but my palate.
I would say, and the color of it is definitely different than the Nickel and Nickel, whereas the Nickel and Nickel was almost that kind of ruby leading into purple kind of.
Yeah, this is almost like a
garnet.
cherry cola.
Yeah, definitely. It's got that kind of rusty look to it, and I love that color. I love the nose. I'm not happy what you're telling me about my little sneak peek on the flavor, but
I like the flavor. But
And this one is the craziest oak. It's 85% new oak for 18 months. I'm not smelling any oak in this, unless it's like a barrel after you've dumped all the wine out of it and you're getting that smell of like
exactly
wet wood kind of thing.
Exactly. How do you do that? Kiki.
It's for another video. I'll do a whole...
That's just staining my teeth.
Well, you don't have to worry about it.
So...
It's more of a habit. I think it's really good.
I do too.
It kind of pisses me off a little bit because it's a $275 bottle, and you guys who watch know that I usually am more jacked up about the cheaper bottles that I'm hoping that come in and like blow things up.
Right.
But man, it's the $275 bottle that's the winner for me today. But I wanted to touch on this. So Palmaz, I said it in the Tale of Two Calves video, if you're a fan of big, bold, Napa Valley style Cabernets, Palmaz is a place for you. But what I have found is that Palmaz is also a play for investment. Think about this, or let me lay this one out for you.
Okay.
Palmaz Estate Cabernets usually release on vintage for about 150 to 160 bucks a bottle. When we were at the vineyard, I bought this bottle for about $230. And that's even including like packaging and like the cost of shipping and all that kind of stuff.
But how much does it typically retail for? 200?
Well, it just depends. It depends on when you find it. So that's what I'm saying. It releases at 150. I bought this in 2017 for about 230, 240. The last price when I looked it up before filming today on their website, it sold out, but the last price they had it listed for was $275. The other
appreciation, guys, appreciation.
The other Palmaz that I did, the 2013, I believe it was, in the other video, had also dramatically increased in value. I don't know.
Just age well?
I don't know. They do age well, as we can tell from this 2011. I don't know, though. The 2011 is kind of a one-off year, and I think that's what I love so much about it, is you can really taste that wet, cool vintage of Napa Valley in this wine. But they do age well. They're crafted with a lot of care. You remember they talk about how their whole production facility is set up so that they do the most minimal pumping as possible of the wines. It's all gravity fed stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that, but...
Well, I also remember him being very scientific in terms of...
For sure.
That's why they have all those screens and everything like that.
For sure.
Because, at certain vineyards, they're like farmers, and they're like, do what it will. And here, it's very much a science. And they believe that produces good wine and apparently good ageability.
This 2011, I like dramatically better than the 2013 that I tasted in the other video.
Really?
This wine is crushing it, guys. It's really crushing it, and I think that it has enough structure to keep kind of going the distance. Yeah. So if you guys have any 2011 Palmaz Cabernet, or if you can get some, you want to drop that 275 bones if you can find it somewhere, I would say that this wine easily has another 5-10 years, because it's more earthy than it is fruity. I would say maybe not longer than that, because that fruit's going to continue to shed away. But I think that this could go for another 5 or 10 years. I'm kind of disappointed that this is my last bottle.
I will say though that the Dariouche for $65 for a nice bottle of wine, $65 bottle of wine is a nice bottle of wine, and that's what stood out to me today. Yeah, no,
I would for sure agree. I think that
if I'm buying a $300 bottle of wine, personally for me, it's really got to rock my world. It's got to change, like, whoa.
Does this do that?
It is good. It's really delicious. I would love to see this at like 150. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I think that you can for sure find wines that express this kind of similar flavor profile for about probably half the price.
Yeah. But it is a delicious wine. They did a good job. I agree. You can continue to age it, and if you want to try it, and you have the money to, try it. It's awesome.
So, the theme of this was kind of the theme of this was
Gas.
the theme of this was basically talking about our trip that we took. So, not only is it about the wines in Napa Valley, but like you said, it's a completely different experience going and tasting wines in Napa Valley than it is most other places really in the world, because of the full immersive experience that you have with the majority of the wineries that you visit there. So, I mean, I would say just from an experience standpoint, I would hard wreck going to every one of these.
100%.
You'd agree?
Totally different experiences at each one, but 100%.
Yeah.
You're going to be happy with anything you go to.
Absolutely. So for me, I would say the Mayacamas Merlot is a no-brainer $60 bottle to have like on hand for that type of an occasion, for that kind of easy drinking occasion. The Dariouche, I'd say for a Cab Franc, 65 is a little high, but very, very well-made wine, very delicious, enjoyable wine. So I would definitely recommend a Dariouche Cab Franc. The Nickel and Nickel is not really my style. I have had Nickel and Nickel wines that I like, but this one in particular, not my style.
Yeah.
And then the Palmaz, just a little pricey, but shows that 2011 Napa vintage really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, say goodbye to Kathy. She's heading out. We'll probably have her back on for another episode. Who knows? We'll see.
Probably.